Hi, welcome to the Arreoblue Podcast, where we talk about all things data. Today I'm joined by Jason Conway from Marston's. Jason actually and Marston's were one of our first customers and one of our first case studies, so it's a really privilege to have him on the show with us. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jason. Work for Marston's. I'll just fill in a little bit about Marston's first, because not everyone knows of us, but we're a pub company, and we've got about 1,300 pubs up and down the UK. We used to be a brewery, used to brew beer, which is probably where if anyone knows the brand, probably knows it from there, but we don't brew beer anymore. So yeah, just a focused pub operator, operate a lot of venues that are kind of not really in town centres, more local to housing estates and things like that. So not everyone's kind of seen our pubs. They're in the background somewhere. But yeah, in terms of me, I've worked at Marston's, well, it's pretty much been my only place of work, so I've been there nearly 14 years. Started out as an accountant, became a management accountant, realised that was an awful idea, transitioned into data, and then really I've spent the last 5 years running the business intelligence function. And then January had a little bit of a change of role and now also look after applications and AI, so kind of building more on top of the data that I've done before.
Brilliant. And look, I think the one thing that always strikes me when I meet you is your passion, the passion that you have for data and some of the exploration that you do with it and just generally the way that you use it. And I guess first thing would be just share a little bit of where you think some of that passion comes from. And
yeah, well, I know I've just bad-mouthed management accountancy, but genuinely, I think there's quite a lot of synergy with what I learned there and what management accounting is all about, and data and particularly BI. So management accountancy, at least my understanding of it, was effectively to analyse data to help the business make good decisions for the future, which is pretty much also the definition of business intelligence. So the two things kind of go hand in hand, and I really did enjoy trying to put the right information in front of people to help them make the right decision. And also I'm a bit nerdy and a bit techie, so all the stuff that goes behind the scenes with it also appealed. So yeah, I think that's where it comes from.
Well, I guess you mentioned that your 14 years with Marston's. I'd be really interested to just share like some of the transformations that you think that have been really significant that you've witnessed and been a part of over that time.
Yeah, well, I suppose aside from like the structure of the business changing a lot, obviously having used to brew beer and now not anymore, and the way that's all changed and that sort of thing, the big bit that's changed kind of in my domain is how data-driven we are now. I think back to when we first started, particularly being in the finance space, how much things were just done on spreadsheets. Don't get me wrong, it still happens today. But really trying to change that, get to that kind of single source of the truth with data, centralise things and all the rest of it, that's been a huge change. To the point where now, like from a BI point of view, that's where people know to go and get their information, their data from. So yeah, that's been a really big change.
So, and obviously, like, as you've been on that journey, and you are so right, we see it all the time, like the spreadsheets, obviously, like, heavily used in finance, really flexible tool, really powerful, giving people BI, starting to move from descriptive through that prescriptive journey and, like, evolution. I know you're going through some of the bits on that, so I guess just sharing a little bit of how you're evolving from that dashboard side to giving people potential around like futures of things so that they can make even better decisions.
Yeah, so I mean, there's kind of two answers to that in terms of trying to predict things to look forwards. The one thing, and you'll know this because we work with you on it, of course, is we're trying to put sales forecasting in, which for a retail business can be a bit of a challenge, particularly a pub company where predictability revolves a lot around things like the weather and events and things like that. So that is challenging, but we're trying to get there. And of course, that will be able to influence an awful lot of things like stock, labour management, whether we go and do promotional activity, all sorts of things. So if we nail that, that's going to be a really big unlock. The other thing we're looking at, and this really kind of picks up on my new role in the AI space, is we've now got quite a mature set of BI reports. They're used quite well, but for people to go from looking at a set of reports to where should I focus my time can actually take quite a lot of their own time, because you've kind of got to look through a lot of stuff to be able to then work out what the top of your priority list should be. So we're looking at how we can put an AI layer on top of all of our data that sits behind Power BI to kind of do that piece of work for people. So kind of encode into a set of agents what an action looks like off the back of a piece of data, prioritize it, and then hopefully first thing in the morning people can come in and they'll get a little digest as to what really they should be spending their time on, or we think they should be spending their time on.
Yeah, brilliant. Like, because we've always talked about actionable insights, and that's really just surfacing up that action to make it easy for people to consume.
Yeah.
Looking back at the journey, what surprised you most about the transformation, and what's the thing that you're most proud of?
I think the biggest challenge has been adoption. So you can do all of this stuff, you know it's the right thing to do, but bring the people along, changing their habits, that was far more of a challenge than I thought. So we kind of built everything, but just trying to wean people off their spreadsheets took some effort. My boss, when we started going through all of this stuff, kind of described it as like trying to push water uphill. But I'll be honest, there did come a bit of a sudden shift where I think people really started to see the value and then would go there naturally. You know, it's a bit like how it's been recently with using AI. Once you really get there and you start using it and get the benefits, whenever you need to do something, it's the first place you look. So I think we had that kind of sudden change with BI as well. And these days now, and this, to be honest, is probably something I can be proud of. If something's wrong in BI, people get pretty annoyed about it. So that's kind of, you know, a bad thing that something's wrong, but you know, it's a good thing in the sense that clearly it's there, it's beneficial, it's working. And yeah, I suppose the other thing to be proud of is that single source of truth mantra that I mentioned. We kind of have got there. There's obviously always things to go at and new random spreadsheets popping up all over the place that you need to try and get a handle on. But for the most part, we do kind of have that single source of truth.
And is there anything that you, when you talk about people making the, you know, eventually it gets to a crescendo, a point where it flips over, is there anything that you noticed as a pattern which perhaps preceded that point?
One of the things was us making the decision that actually, you know what, you can get what you need for BI. So we're not going to send you spreadsheets anymore. So it was, in the end, a little bit forced. You know, some users got there straight away, the early adopters were all over it. But to really get that consistency and to actually kind of get the benefit of people not needing to manually send out reports and things like that, we just had to put a nail in it and stop it. So that was a big one. Obviously not really what you want to do, but at the same time, one of the reasons for doing BI to start with, you know, we're trying to automate things. It's not particularly value adding for someone to just refresh a spreadsheet and send it out. So, yeah.
So I guess, you know, you have been on a big cloud transformation journey as well, actually. And what's some of the common misconceptions perhaps that people have on data transformation, cloud transformation, and also any comments on, as you're starting on this wave of AI, the importance of getting some of those foundations in place?
The big thing that's a bit of a misconception, this probably comes from people that aren't in the technical space, is how difficult it can be. When we, you know, for example, we're a retail business, there's lots of third-party tools that we use that we need to bring data in from. Sometimes people look at actually pulling the data in from the platform and getting it to BI as a nice, quick, easy win. But more often than not, there are a lot of challenges there. You know, trying to actually bring that data in a reliable fashion, transform it so that it actually fits the mold of what you need for reporting. There's a lot of steps to go through. You have to really spend some time understanding the data, trying to work out what the meaning is. So that is a challenge, trying to illustrate to people it's not as easy as they might think. And in terms of the AI piece, So I think the single source of truth is really important, because ultimately AI becomes another garbage in, garbage out tool if you don't get your data right first. I think that's been the message from the start around trying to get the benefit of AI. There's no point doing it unless your data is in a really good place. So I'm kind of really happy that we've invested a lot of time and effort in that from a BI point of view, because it puts us in a pretty good position to start leveraging the benefits of AI.
Yeah, I certainly think, like, we see it all the time, like with, and we really enjoy the part of our role where we're in the room as a, the three parties, ourselves, the business and IT, and you get the ideas coming so quickly from the business, and then explaining what you have to do to make that robust, so that you'll consistently get the right answer. If it falls over, whether it's self-healing or whether there is at least a pattern so that someone can quickly get it back up. And all of these kind of things, which people now have access to such incredible technology, they will ask the questions of, why can't I do this so quickly? But it's because, well, that at scale things change, and they change quite rapidly. So yeah, we've definitely seen that. I always quite like to point out to people where, like, well, how important is this? It's very, very important. Who's getting up in the morning if it breaks?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Once people get hooked on that sort of thing, it's a bit like a drug, and when it goes wrong, you feel the effect of it.
And I think the other one on the AI side, again, for me, we always talk about garbage in, garbage out, but with AI even more so, because it's the statistical engine, unknown unknowns, it will just walk right over the top of. So making sure, again, that you've got the right foundations in place and guardrails, so you can spot some of those unknown unknowns, and people, therefore, when they're making decisions, it's based on fact.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, a bit like our adoption with BI was that the biggest struggle with driving adoption was the people and getting it embedded in. I think we're going to go through a similar stage with AI, but almost on the reverse. So I think people will start to get in there and start to use it and find some benefits, but we almost need to encourage people to be a bit more careful and to look out for the hallucinations, as you mentioned. And obviously we'll do our best to put guardrails in to prevent that, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and I think that's where so much work is now happening you talked about it before, the effort that goes into the modelling and now the semantic modelling and ontology and all of these things that are becoming super important, because, again, I mean, we've seen stuff where ROI could mean return on investment, or it could mean Republic of Ireland. And the AI might statistically give you one or the other. So having that kind of semantic layer that helps describe some of these things and how they are in your organisation.
Definitely.
Because when you talk about adoption being the biggest change, nothing kills adoption like someone who might already be cynical getting a clearly wrong answer.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. Not releasing it too soon is a really big one. You fall foul sometimes of people releasing things before they're really ready. People go and have a look and go, that's rubbish, and then never want to touch it again. So yeah, there's that saying that's kicked around too much, go slow to go fast. I think it does actually ring true here.
Well, look, to close, I've got some quick fire questions that we can just run through. So 5 years from now, what will great data teams be doing that today's teams aren't?
I think the way AI is going, there'll be much less people sitting down writing code. It will be producing really good specs, and then hopefully letting the agents take care of things, unless it becomes so expensive that actually people are a better way of doing things, which I'm very mindful of.
Yes. If you could give one piece of advice to a business beginning its data transformation, what would it be?
Get the foundations right, don't rush into it. It's all too easy to go around solving things quickly, but it will come back and bite further down the line if you don't get things set up in a scalable way from the outset.
I think that might have helped answer the next one. Data quality or AI? Which one should organisations prioritise first?
Yeah, obviously quality, yeah. Garbage in, garbage out otherwise, yeah.
One habit every data leader should develop?
Don't rush into making a decision. If it's something that's more difficult, if it's something that becomes difficult to unpick further down the line, you could really get burnt by it. So, yeah, make sure anything that's foundational, you've done some research into and know what the implications are.
Yes. We talked about adoption. We talk about the curve of innovation diffusion and the early adopters, and be aware of the people you can experiment with. And equally part of that is be really clear on the assumptions you've made. And then, yeah. Cool.
Definitely.
Right, last one. Best career advice you've ever received?
Try and rule out what you don't want to do rather than work out what you do want to do. It's easier to rule things out than it is to choose the right path from the outset.
That is really good. I think I've certainly followed chunks of that. It's better to keep the things that drain your energy away, and you can build in things that add to that energy stock.
Definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
No, absolute pleasure.